Welcome everybody to episode 21, Meet with Cheese. I'm your host, LaDrop with Cheese. Today we have an amazing guest for you. She used to be a public speaker and she still is. She's the founder of Freedom with NFTs. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Lauren Turton. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've had such a great time with our pre-chat and I'm super pumped to get into some juicy content during our interview.
Yes, I mean, we really always should be recording the stuff before. I feel like before and after is when there's so many good nuggets that you just miss in the crux of the interview. But again, thanks for taking the time out in beautiful Cabo San Lucas while I'm in the Midwest. But tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up where you are now in Web3.
Thank you so much for this question. So I have a background in event production. I was in the event production world for many years in Southern California. I worked at a production company that produced large scale, high budget events. And then when the owner had some health problems and shut that company down, I had to make the decision, do I continue working in the event industry or do I start my own company? And so at that time, I decided to start my own company and I started offering services in the marketing, branding, and event planning space. And after about 6 months of doing that, I realized I'm never going to scale this company if I keep working gig to gig, client to client. And this was before the time when everyone had an online-based business. So I didn't have a lot of references on how to create an online-based business. So I started Googling. And I did find some women who had online-based businesses, and I would look at their websites, analyze what they had created in order to serve their clients online. And I spent many, many months researching, figuring it out. And at one point, I locked myself in my room for an entire month and I learned ClickFunnels. And that's how I started with my online-based business journey. And once I figured out having an online-based business, I started working with clients online. And from there, I started helping my clients create their own online-based businesses. And that company was going really great. I had an incredible program called Soul Career Clarity. I wrote a #1 best-selling book on that process. And an article in Forbes came out about my work as a business coach 1 year ago. And it was really interesting because when that article came out, I had already started to realize that I wanted to pivot from that business. And the reason why I wanted to pivot from that business is because I had found out about NFTs. Last summer, I was scrolling on TikTok and I saw some content about NFTs and I said, is this it? Is this the shift that I've been looking for? You see, for many years, I knew that there was going to be another shift in technology. I remember when the internet came out when I was a kid. I didn't know to do anything more with that big white box computer that we had than just play a game after school here or there. And then when social media came out, MySpace, when I was in high school, I didn't know to do anything more with MySpace than run home after school and change my top 8. So I was never at the forefront of these two changes in technology that I had seen during my lifetime. Eventually, I did learn the strategies to leverage social media. And that's how I scaled my coaching company. And what I taught my clients to do is leverage social media. But I wasn't at the forefront of it. I was behind the times with that. So when I found out about NFTs last year, I said, holy crap, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. And like most of us, I went deep down the rabbit hole for a few months. And at some point I said, all right, you're learning this new technology. You're learning so many incredible things. You're connecting with really, really interesting people, but how can you show up in the space, Lauren? You see, I don't have a tech background. And I said to myself, well, what is it? How can you provide value here? So I took the time to deep dive on myself and identify what I loved most, which was communicating with others. Obviously, I like speaking, so that was on the list, and asking questions, because at that point in time, I was asking all of the questions about everything that I was learning in this space. And I looked at those 3 things and I said, Lauren, that's a podcast. So then I researched the podcasts at that time, and there was only maybe 10, not even 15 podcasts about NFTs at that time. And there weren't female voices on those podcasts. And I said, Lauren, you have a once in a lifetime opportunity to start a podcast in a niche that hasn't taken off yet. And so I started recording content, and that's how Freedom with NFTs was born. And the Freedom with NFTs podcast evolved into much more very quickly. I started building a community. People were DMing me on socials, asking questions. And I said, I need to create a container for everyone. So that's when we launched the Freedom with NFTs Discord. And then from there, people were saying, well, I need help with this. I need help with that. And so I started showing up every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and delivering trainings on areas that I knew about from my business coaching space that people needed help with in the NFT space. Because after they started their NFT project, which is, a startup company, they realized they needed business expansion strategy and help. So I started showing up every week doing those free trainings. We then started writing blog articles based off of what people asked questions on. And that's how Freedom with NFTs came to life and what I'm working on now in the Web3 space.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much for being an influential voice in this space. And I'm glad that you're educating and trying to get that mass adoption. I also went down the rabbit hole too. It was COVID. I'm like, what is this? It's just a contract, and anything can, from a creator to an end user, and that's it. Everything's going to be an NFT, So I learned that kind of early on a couple of years ago. But so what are you really passionate about nowadays in Web3?
I love this question, and thank you so much for asking it. The thing that I'm most passionate about now in the Web3 space, after being a part of this community for a year, is time management. I have heard and I have seen so many people say things like, I left my 9-to-5 job in the Web2 world to work 24 hours a day in Web3. And this is simply not sustainable, and it's not healthy. And I've had this conversation with so many people in my community and in other communities. And so I spent the month of June creating a time management tool specifically for the Web3 space. And we launched that tool in August for a group of beta testers who used the tool. And since then, we have optimized that. It's a really, really important thing for all of us to think about how we're managing our time, how we're preserving our energy, how we need to make sure that we're going outside to touch grass and to get time off of technology, because we're going to be here for a long time. And in order for us to be here for a long time, we need to make sure that we're healthy and we're sustaining what it is that we're doing. So I'm really passionate about time management, setting boundaries, and making sure that we're doing the things that we need to do so that we can show up in the right way.
Thank you so much for saying that. Yes, it never stops, and in my head, I'm getting outworked by everyone, that even if I take a break, so I've been much better lately about, okay, you're not touching your phone all day today. That's it. You're out, so I think that's really important for the community to take care of themselves and don't get burnt out. Like you said, we're going to be here for a long time. Speaking of which, the NFT community, we all have our different perception of it. And, I think we're the best community in the world that I've ever been a part of. But who is the NFT community to you?
The NFT community to me has been such a special group of people that have been so curious, uplifting, energetic, excited, and supportive of one another. And one of my favorite things about the NFT community and the Web3 community is that we're all walks of life. Normally when you're creating a product or a service and you're looking at who your customer is, what their identity is, you can get really specific about who that person is. And when you look at creating products or services in the Web3 space, instead of describing someone like, my ideal customer is a woman between the age of 20 and 30 who lives in Chicago, who has 2 kids, who works in corporate America, we're saying things like, my ideal community member is an innovator, is a pioneer, is a trailblazer. And I love that shift in how we're describing who is a part of the communities that have come together in the NFT space. And like you said, the support and what's happening here is very, very special. I think we're going to look back on these years and say, wow, what we did in 2021, 2022, and the people that we connected with, that was a once in a lifetime situation.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And also the speed of innovation too, right? Like there are no corporations telling you when to show up at work. Everyone's building, and if you have similar missions, you want to help. And it's genuine. That's the best part about the people in this space is if you're not genuine and you're always kind of a D-bag in Web 2, you're going to D-bag in Web 3 too. Like it's the really good people that are somewhat intelligible as well, because blockchain technology is not something easy to comprehend. So I love the community and where we're headed right now. And you also have a Twitter space once a week for the community, right? Tell us a little bit about what you have going on with your Twitter space weekly.
Every Wednesday, myself and Dr. Peace Uche, aka Doc Peace, we host a Twitter Spaces called NFT Gold, and we host that at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's a 1-hour Twitter Spaces, and the way that we curate it is we allow the guests to come on stage and share what they're working on, but more importantly, what they're welcoming support with right now. So it's not one of those spaces where people are just coming on to shill their project. It's all about getting support. And once they share what they need support with now, if myself or Doc Peace is knowledgeable on that topic, we will lend advice. Or if we know one of our regular attendees knows about that topic, we'll call them up to share their areas of expertise on that topic. And then if we don't know the answer in real time, we take notes and we make sure to link that person with someone that can support them. It's been a really powerful space. We've been doing it for since January. So we are many, many episodes in, because we started at the top of the year with 5 a week, then we whittled down to 3, and now we're doing it one time a week. Here, I'll start that part over. And now we're doing it 1 time a week. And it's been so powerful to see the transformations that happen in real time with connections that are being made. And then to hear people after share with us the connections that they made just by sharing what they needed help with and the results that they're getting, because now they're getting the support that they need.
Yeah, that's great. Now I have to show up every Wednesday. I'm going to put it in my calendar because I'm all about people in this space. And I hear different people using this term, but I like it. You're amplifying value for your community. You know, that's the whole purpose of what we're doing in Web3 is amplifying value. So that's amazing. Everyone show up on Wednesdays to Lauren's Twitter Spaces and you'll get some value amplification. Speaking of like the community and people you've met, I know you've had some esteemed guests on your podcast, one of which is Gary V, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a pretty cool story. So I knew that I wanted to interview Gary V in real life when I was going to be in New York for NFT NYC 2021. But I knew securing that interview was going to be difficult. So what I did pre going to New York was I spent time interacting with him on Twitter. I had a few tweets back and forth with him. And when I launched an NFT project that the restaurant that I used to co-own created, which was a customer loyalty program using co-ops and NFTs, I had everyone who was attending that in real life event tweet him. So about 30-ish people were tweeting him, and it said something like, "Hey, Gary, stop watching football. Check out what Lauren Turton and Chow Piadina are doing with a customer loyalty program using NFTs." And I also interacted with him when he was speaking at a conference in San Diego. It was a real estate conference. And so I started tweeting him and I was like, "At Gary, you have a few NFT people here." And he saw it and from backstage was tweeting with me. And the reason why this is important to understand is because even though he never followed me back, he never interacted with the tweets that we did with the 30 people. He did interact with me when he was at the real estate conference. There's a little bit of brand recognition going on there because he's seen my name so many times at this point. And so leading up to NFT NYC 2021, I saw that there was an offsite event happening and he was the speaker. I bought tickets for that event. And on the day of the event, I made sure to show up an hour before the event started so that I could be one of the first people in line for that event. We go into the event, I get a front row seat. And while people were starting to come into the event and network and chit chat with each other, I said, no, don't talk to me right now. And I cut my eyes at the 2 points of entry, and I stood between the 2 points of entry in the middle, because I knew there was only 2 doors that man could walk in, and I was going to be one of the first one to have a conversation with him. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. He walked in one of the doors, I beelined it over to him, and I said, hi, Gary, I'm Lauren Turton. And he goes, oh yeah, Lauren Turton. We're totally good. I know what you're doing in the space. You've got a podcast, your restaurant did a loyalty program. And I was like, what? I did not expect him to say that to me. So the sentences that I had rehearsed in my mind started escaping me because nerves were taking over. And so I said to myself, Lauren, get it together. And then I did my ask. I said, Gary, may I please have 3 minutes of your time after your talk today to interview you for the Freedom with NFTs podcast? And he was like, yeah, absolutely, Lauren, no problem. So he did his talk. And again, I prepared myself. I knew that the end of the talk was coming up soon. I had my backpack ready to go. Remember, I'm in the front row seat. And I know that as he's about to end his talk, people are going to rush the stage. And so I was the first one out of my seat. And I just ran up to the stage and I said, Gary, podcast. And he looked at me, he said, yes, hallway. And then he looked at the room and he said, give me 5 minutes, give me 5 minutes. And then we went back in the hallway. I get out my little baby microphone, because at that point, all I had was a little baby microphone, my cell phone on a selfie stick. And guess what? My microphone didn't turn on. So I start to panic. And then he looked at me and he's like, Lauren, no problem. D-Rock, film everything and get this content to Lauren as soon as possible. And that's exactly what happened. D-Rock filmed our interview, and then he got me that content within a few days. And that's how I secured the interview with him in real life.
That is an amazing story. And wow, you're such a badass. I mean, you get what you want, nothing was stopping you that day, and you had ultimate success, how you envisioned it before it even happened. That's the power of Web3 and powerful minds and a good strategy and execution, all those things. So well done. My story's not nearly as fun, but I did meet him that same week during NFT NYC, and he was having a secret wine party, and he tweeted at 10 p.m. where it was going to be. But I'm like, I'm going to go to a place where I know all the V friends are hanging out. And they were all at this bar, and as soon as he tweeted, it was a mad dash. I mean, everyone just ran out of there like a kid, trying to get the first cab, calling Ubers. By the time I showed up, there was like 1,000 people in line to get into this wine party. But Gary, being the guy that he is, he took time and went down the line and talked to every single person and took a picture with everyone that wanted one with him, including me. I got to talk to him briefly. I gave him my business card, and I haven't asked him for anything since, but I'm thinking I need to get more present in front of him so he recognizes the cheese, So very good strategy for everyone out there too. Listen to this woman, how she strategizes and executes to get what she wants. And that's spectacular. So I'm curious about, we all have our different interpretation of the metaverse, and what does that mean to you? And how do you think the metaverse is going to have in store for the future of humans?
When I hear the word metaverse, I think endless opportunities. We are able to impact so many people with the metaverse. And I know that there's some folks that go into the negative side of things about how we're getting so far away from in real life, being outside, outdoors, nature, et cetera, with the metaverse. But guess what? We've already been in the metaverse for many years. This is just a different form of the metaverse. Think of how many hours you spend on social media. Think of how many hours you spend on Zoom. Think of how many hours people play video games, all of the things that we're already doing online. Now we're able to do it at a higher capacity and in a different way that's more impactful. One of the things that I think about, and a conversation that I've had that just absolutely blew my mind, is think about when we can do doctor visits in the metaverse. Think about when we can access communities who aren't able to travel in parts of the world where they might not have internet. And then we have a situation for them in the metaverse set up at one of their local facilities. It's just absolutely endless what we can do with the metaverse. And it's like anything else out there. There are going to be people who do negative things with the metaverse, just like there's people who do negative things with the internet, social media, etc. But when you look at the positive things that can come out of this, I'm really excited to see what the metaverse holds in the future. It's really cool to see what people are building in the metaverse now. Something I think about often is, again, when we look back on these years and we say, wow, look what we built back then, and then look what come of all of that now. It's going to be really, really powerful to see how this all progresses.
Yes, agree. And the mass adoption is going to be when people don't know that they're using blockchain technology, and just the user interface is similar to Web 2, and I see that's kind of where a lot of the company strategies are headed, is people don't need to know about blockchain. They're going to use it.
Exactly. I knew when I named my company Freedom with NFTs, I was like, this is not going to age well. I know that. But because of where we're at right now, I need to use the word NFTs in my branding so that when people are searching on Google, this will come up. And even now with Starbucks rolling out their project, they're not even using the words NFTs in the description of what they're doing. And when you look at a lot of the major brands, they're using things like digital assets, digital collectibles, your journey, things like that. And exactly, when we think about mass adoption, the technology part of it, the general public doesn't want or need to know about it. It's the same as when you use your phone or when you drive a car. I don't need to know all of the behind the scenes of it. And that's how mass adoption is going to happen, is ease of use for the end user.
Yes, totally agree with you. And we're heading that way, even though it's a bear market, people are very excited. There's so much money flowing into funding companies that want to build blockchain, anything on the blockchain, so it's a really exciting time. And we are going to look back fondly on this. And one of my favorite things is like seeing people progress, like your community on Twitter Spaces, those connections that you make. Like a guy I met a year ago now just sold out 5,000 NFTs like last week. That was the Nexus Voyagers, and he didn't really even know what Web3 was when I met him, and now he's just going and building the community. So that is what keeps me going as well, is that excitement. How are you with NFT collecting? Do you have a big collection or some favorite NFTs that you own?
So I do hold a couple of VFriends too. I hold a Fame Lady Squad, Boss Beauty. When I first started my journey, I was definitely more into the collecting side of things. And then I would say the last 6 months or so, I switched over into really looking at the problems that are needed to be solved in the space, what my community really needed help with, and then creating assets to be able to help them on their journeys, like the time management tool that I mentioned earlier.
Yes, I'm going to have to take a look at that. When will that be available to the public?
It's available. You can find it in the link in my bio on any of the platforms that I'm on.
All right. Everyone in the Web3 space, go to Lauren's profile and download this time management app, because we all need it. Definitely. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. I think, you're a very bright mind. You're driven. You're perfect for this space to help us adopt, for the masses. So I appreciate your time, Lauren. And yeah, thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me. And for anyone listening, my Twitter handle is @Lauren Turton _ LAURENTURTON_. I'd love to connect with you there.
Yes, connect with Lauren on LinkedIn, Twitter. Go to her Twitter Spaces on every Wednesday. And I'll see you there, Lauren.